protected British industry and kept the empire economically integrated.
Let's say Ukraine wins the
required
war,
Britain to
Russia
dismantle
withdraws,
it.
or the
American
conflict
companies
freezes,
got access
Ukraine
to those
joins the
markets.
EU, maybe
British
NATO,
manufacturers lost their
reconstruction
protected
begins.
trade.
That's the
The
best case
empire's
scenario.
economic
But
foundation
here's what
started
comes with it.
cracking, and
100
Britain couldn't
to
export
200
goods that
billion in
competed with
war
American
debt,
products.
400 to 600
So while
billion in
Britain was
reconstruction
fighting
debt,
Germany,
total
American
debt,
companies were
500
taking
to
over
800
British
billion
trade
dollars.
routes, British
Ukraine's
markets,
GDP,
British
if it
customers,
recovers, will be
British
100
textiles,
to
steel,
150
machinery,
billion
all
per
of it
year.
faced
Debt
American
to GDP
competition in
ratio,
markets Britain
400
had
to
controlled for
500%.
generations. What happens
The
when a
war was
country
being
owes
won on
that
the
much?
battlefield,
IMF
but the
and World
economic
Bank
war was
structural
already
adjustment
over.
programs,
By
forced
1945,
privatization,
Britain owed more
state-owned
than their
energy
entire
companies sold
GDP.
off,
The
utilities
debt was
privatized,
unsustainable.
land
By
sold,
1950,
resources
the
open to
empire
foreign
was finished.
extraction,
India
austerity
gone in
measures, cut
1947.
pensions, cut
Palestine,
healthcare, cut
Burma,
education, foreign
Ceylon,
ownership of 30
all
to 50%
gone by
of the economy.
1948.
You want a recent
Middle
example?
East slipping
Greece
away.
after
Africa
2008. The
demanding
Troika came
independence.
in. By
European
1960,
Central Bank,
the pound
IMF,
sterling was a
European
regional
Commission,
currency.
demanded
Nobody wanted it
privatization,
anymore.
austerity,
Central banks that
fire
had held
sales of
pounds for
state
decades
assets.
dumped them
Greece
and bought dollars.
lost
The
economic
dollar replaced
sovereignty
it. London
without
stopped
losing a
being the
war.
financial
Now
center of the
imagine
world.
that,
Wall
but
Street
10
took
times
over.
worse.
American
That's
banks,
Ukraine's
American
future.
companies,
Ukraine
American
will win the
currency,
war,
all of
but
it
it will
built
lose
on
the
the ruins
country.
of British
Just like
power.
Britain won World War II,
Lend-Lease
but lost the
didn't
British
save the
Empire.
empire. Now here's
It
the
purchased
uncomfortable
it.
truth. And here's
Ukraine
what most
is the
people
victim
don't
of Russian
understand. This
aggression.
wasn't an accident.
That's
It was
true.
the plan.
Ukraine needs
American
help to survive.
policymakers
That's also
saw
true.
an opportunity.
But the help comes with
Britain
chains
needed
attached.
help.
That's
America
also
had
true.
leverage.
This isn't about
Lend-Lease
picking
wasn't
sides.
charity.
This isn't
It was the
pro-Russia
largest
or
wealth
anti-Ukraine.
transfer in
This is
modern
about
history
understanding
from
how the
Britain to
system
America.
works.
And it was
Geopolitics
legal,
has no
celebrated, and
aid
called
is always
aid.
transactional.
The winners were
Small
American
countries
defense
fought between
contractors
great
who got
powers
paid to build
always
the
pay the
weapons.
price.
Wall
Korea,
Street banks
Vietnam
that financed the
fought
program.
proxy wars,
American corporations
devastated
that took
Iraq,
over British
Afghanistan,
markets.
liberated
Britain
by the
became
West,
America's
became
junior
debt
partner.
colonies,
Not an independent
Yugoslavia,
power, helped by the IMF,
UK's
broke
biggest used
apart.
car sale
The pattern
is
repeats
back,
because the
with over
incentives don't change.
20,000
This
used
isn't
cars.
about picking sides.
A dependent
It's
ally.
about
The
understanding
empire was
game.
gone.
And
The
in
currency
this
was
game,
finished.
the House
The
always
sovereignty was
wins.
transferred.
The House
And
is
it
the
all
military
started with a lone
industrial
dressed up
financial
as Hulk.
complex. Ukraine is
Now,
the table.
80 years later,
And you're paying the
same
buy-in with your
playbook is
tax
being
dollars.
run again.
Let me summarize.
Same
$113
structure,
billion
same
in
language,
aid.
same
60%
outcome.
goes to U.S. defense contractors.
In
30%
2022,
is loans.
Congress passed the Ukraine Lend-Lease Act. Same name, same mechanism, different. Ukraine can't repay. 10% is aid with strings
country.
attached.
If you
The
think
result,
this time is
wealth transfer from U.S. taxpayers to elites, wealth transfer from Ukraine's future to foreign creditors, Britain thought American help saved them. It did. But the price was their empire. Ukraine thinks Western help will save them. It will. But the price will be their economic future. This has happened before. It's happening now. It will happen again. Because the pattern isn't a bug. It's a feature. The system is designed this way. The only way to break the pattern
you don't understand
is to see
the pattern.
it first.
Let me show you the numbers behind Ukraine aid and where the money actually goes.
And you can't hold leaders
$113
accountable
billion,
if you don't know what
that's
they're
what you've
really
been told
doing.
America is sending
If
to
this
Ukraine.
opens your eyes,
Humanitarian
three things.
aid,
One,
weapons to
hit
fight
the like
Russia,
button.
support for
This video
democracy.
will get buried if
but
you don't.
here's what they don't
The
tell
algorithm
you.
doesn't
That
want
money
this
never leaves
conversation
America.
happening.
Let me show you the
Two,
math. 60% stays in the U.S.
Because when the debt
30%
comes
is
due,
a loan
when Ukraine
will never
starts
repay.
selling state
Only
assets,
10% is actual
when BlackRock
aid,
announces
and even that
record
10%
profits
comes
from
with strings
reconstruction,
attached.
I'll show you
So
the
when you hear
receipts.
113 billion in aid, what you're really hearing is 68 billion to U.S. defense contractors, 34 billion in debt Ukraine will owe for generations, and 11 billion with conditions that transfer Ukrainian wealth to American companies. Let's break down the 60%. Here's how it works. America sends old weapons to Ukraine, Javelin missiles we've had in storage since the 90s, HIMARS systems that have been sitting in depots, tanks that were scheduled for decommissioning. Ukraine gets used equipment. Then the Pentagon takes 60% of the aid budget and uses it to buy new weapons from defense contractors. Lockheed Martin gets a $3 billion contract to produce new HIMARS. Raytheon gets $2 billion for Javelin systems. Comment below. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. $1 billion is not aid, it's loans.
Ukraine has to pay it back with interest. Low interest, but still interest. 10 to 30-year terms. Here's the problem. Ukraine's GDP before the war was 160 billion a year. Now it's down to 100 billion. Their economy is shattered, infrastructure destroyed, millions of people have left, and they owe 34 billion in loans, plus interest. The math doesn't work. Ukraine owes 34 billion at 2 to 3% interest. General Dynamics gets Lockheed Martin gets a $3 billion contract to produce new HIMARS. Raytheon sitting in depots, tanks that were scheduled for decommissioning. Ukraine gets used equipment. Then the Pentagon takes 60% of the aid budget and uses it to buy new weapons from defense contractors. Lockheed Martin gets a $3 billion contract to produce new HIMARS. Raytheon gets $2 billion for Javelin systems. And they owe 34 billion in loans, plus interest. The math doesn't work. Ukraine owes 34 billion. General Dynamics new HIMARS. Raytheon gets 2 billion for Javelin systems. America steps in with a program called Lend-Lease. Roosevelt sells it to the American public as charity. We're lending Britain weapons, ships, food. General Dynamics gets 1.5 billion. The name itself is designed to sound friendly. America's weapons stockpiles
like
get
borrowing
upgraded.
your neighbor's
Ukraine gets
lawnmower.
the old
But
stuff.
here's what
And
nobody
defense
understood at the
contractors
time.
get paid.
Britain wasn't
Lockheed
getting
stock
help.
is up 35%
They were getting a mortgage
since the
they could
war
never
started.
pay off.
Raytheon
$50
up
billion.
28%.
That's
General
what America
Dynamics
loaned
up
Britain.
22%.
In today's
That's
money,
not because they're
that's
patriotic.
700 billion.
It's because they're
And
getting
it came
paid.
with terms.
Every aid
Britain had
package
to
is a
repay
pay in
in
gold.
gold.
Defense industry.
They had to ship their
Ukraine
gold
gets
reserves
old
to
weapons.
America
American
immediately.
defense
Thousands of
contractors
tons
get
of
new
gold
contracts,
loaded onto
and you're
ships
told this is
sent
aid.
across the
Now the
Atlantic.
30%.
The pound
$34 billion,
sterling, which had been the
is not
world's
aid.
reserve
It's
currency
loans.
for a
Ukraine
century,
has to pay it
lost
back
value
with interest.
overnight. Low interest, but still interest.
Get
10 to
exposure
30 year
crypto
Here's
without getting lost. Bitwise delivers in-depth insights and listed investment products.
but that was just the beginning. The fine print was brutal. America demanded access to British military bases. Here's the problem. Worldwide. Naval bases in the Caribbean, air bases in the Pacific. Ukraine's GDP before the war was 160 billion a year. Now it's down to 100 billion. Their economy is shattered. Infrastructure destroyed. Millions of people have left, and they owe 34 billion in loans, to America plus interest. The math doesn't work. Ukraine owes 34 billion at
Bermuda,
2 to 3%
Trinidad,
interest. Antigua, the Bahamas,
Reconstruction
all handed over. These weren't symbolic gestures. These were strategic assets that Britain had control. Are estimated at interest.
Antigua,
Reconstruction
the Bahamas,
costs are estimated at
over.
400 to 600
These weren't
billion.
symbolic gestures.
They'll have to borrow that
These
too.
were strategic
Total debt will
assets that
exceed
Britain had
200%
controlled
of
for
GDP.
centuries. For
America
comparison,
took them as
Britain
payment.
owed 30%
America
of
also
GDP
demanded that
after
Britain
World War
open
II.
its colonial
It took them
markets.
60 years
For
to
two
pay it off.
centuries,
Britain had
Ukraine's
run a
debt to
system called
GDP will be
imperial
over
preference.
200%
British goods
ends.
got priority
This isn't
in
a loan
India,
they can repay.
Africa,
It's a debt
Southeast
trap.
Asia.
And
That
the
system
collateral,
protected British
Ukraine's
industry
land
and kept the
resources and
empire
future,
economically
then there's the
integrated.
10%.
Lend-lease
11
required
billion in
Britain to
actual
dismantle it.
humanitarian and
American
economic
companies
aid.
got access to
Food,
those markets.
medicine,